Hey folks, I'm JP Reali here at Ty Forge Studios in Baltimore, Maryland, and today we're talking about this beautiful guitar that I have made by the Fraulini Guitar Company from Madison, Wisconsin. That, of course, was the Reverend Gary Davis's version of the Cincinnati Flow rag that I just played for y'all, and it's a beautiful piece to play on a beautiful guitar. This is the second guitar that I have had built for me by the Fraulini Guitar Company, which is owned and operated by Todd Cambio out of Madison, Wisconsin. He is a one-man shop. I think he sometimes has an apprentice. I'm not sure. Maybe his apprentice is full-time by now. But he builds these guitars by himself, by hand, in his shop out there in Wisconsin. And this particular model is the Felix model. Todd has a bunch of different models that he makes. He specializes in early 20th century ladder braced guitars, specifically guitars built by the kinds of companies like the Oscar Schmidt Company, early teens, 20s, 30s. This guitar this model is a ladder brace guitar, but for me, I asked if he could do it, and he agreed to do it. He built it with an X brace pattern, which means the bracing on the top crosses in an X instead of laterally, which is the way many Stella guitars and Galliano and some other makers in the 20s and 30s. And Todd does a great job recreating those original designs. He built a Stella a copy of a Stella 12 string for me about 6 years ago. It's based on the guitar that Hootie Ledbetter used, and it is a beautiful 12 string guitar with a tremendous sound that I've used to record some time ago. And this guitar is absolutely beautiful. And let me take the strap off here so I can show you the guitar in a little more detail. Todd's standard woods are Adirondack spruce for the top, which is a really good wood. It's strong, which means it can be cut thinner, which will give it more vibrations, which will produce more sound. And for this particular model, I had to make the back and sides out of maple. And he told me he had a stash of Upper Peninsula, Michigan sugar maple. And you can see the grain on the back is beautifully flamed. And let's see if we can get a shot of the sides. The grain on the side of the woods is beautifully flamed and really kind of three-dimensional. It's a beautiful, beautiful instrument. And it has several other features that make it stand out. And one of them is this hand-carved bridge that Todd calls his whale tail bridge that was common on guitars, once again, in the 1920s and 1930s. And the other thing that makes this guitar stand out is the beautiful inlays on the fretboard. That was a little extra charge. It's an ebony fretboard with hand-cut mother-of-pearl inlays at the 3rd, 5th, 7th, 9th, 12th, and 14th fret. I'm sorry, there is nothing at the 3rd fret. It's just a dot here. And it gives it, in my opinion, a real taste of elegance and class. And I had Todd copy the neck is made of mahogany, and I took a pin gauge router and copied the profile of a 1946 Gibson LG2 that I have, and I just sent pictures of it to Todd, and he copied it with pretty good accuracy. So this neck, it's pretty substantial, and it feels to me like an old Gibson. Now, the scale length on this guitar is 25.5 inches long, which is longer than the average Gibson, which was 24 3/4. Although Gibson did make its J200 in 25.5 inch scale. And what the longer scale does, it makes the string tension a little tighter, so the action's a little stiffer, but you get a little bit bigger sound. And This guitar has it in spades. To me and my ears, this guitar has the sound. It's almost as loud as a slope-shouldered dreadnought. It's louder than Martin OM style guitar, and almost as loud as a Gibson slope-shouldered dreadnought like a J45. It's not as big as in sound or obviously in size as a Gibson J200, which is what Reverend Gary Davis used. But those are really big guitars. I have small hands, and they're kind of tough for me to play. So I was looking for something kind of in between to kind of get that J200 sound, that which is what Reverend Gary Davis used, and his guitars were all maple. And to me and my ears, that's a big part of his sound, was that maple guitar, acoustic guitars have a real sharp attack and are real bright and a nice snap to them. And I think this guitar has it. Todd also built this model Felix. It's the only guitar he offers with 14 frets clear of the body, but he built this guitar specifically for ragtime and jazz players, which I really love the fingerstyle Piedmont classic blues, ragtime, instrumental pieces, which is why I bought this guitar, and it really delivers in spades. One of the other really unique features about this guitar is that Todd hand applies the shellac finish, right, which means he rubs a little on at a time, lets it dry, puts it on, buffs it. He also uses hot hide glue to glue all the pieces together, which is something that both the finish and the hot hide glue are something that the old masters in the early 20th century used. And this is my second guitar, as I mentioned, that he has built for me. And as with the 12 string, when I got this guitar and picked it up out of the case, first thing that I thought was that this is not a new guitar. I don't know how he does it, but Todd makes guitars that seem to have already aged, and they come out with a very distinct personality, and you put them in your hands and they just play themselves, and this guitar is absolutely no exception. I also love the fact that it has a slotted headstock and this little cutaway here, which is, you're meant to look at the positive side, which this little bit is supposed to be the scroll of a mandolin. We could call it a crescent moon, people call it whatever they want, but he says it's supposed to be the reverse image of a mandolin scroll, which I think is kind of cool. And it's got a bone nut, binding, bone saddle, and I don't know if you can see here, if I can hold this up, the binding, the trim around the body is also made out of rosewood. And Todd hand cuts everything he needs to build a guitar. He does it all himself. He makes the binding himself. He does everything himself. He cuts the inlays himself by hand. And these are beautiful, beautiful guitars. There are a lot of professional musicians playing blues or roots or old-time music that are playing his guitars. Once again, I got on his wait list, and from the time I got on the wait list till the time he delivered the guitar, it was about a year, which is very quick turnaround time in the world of custom-built guitars, acoustic or electric. And for this time, I actually never spoke to Todd when I had him build a 12-string for me 6 years ago. I talked to him on the phone a couple times, but this time, since we already knew each other, we just did it strictly through email, which is great. He's very, very friendly, and you can call him up and he'll talk to you all day long, which is good and bad. Get a lot of information from him. He's a very knowledgeable guy, but when you talk to him on the phone, he's not building guitars. So it's kind of a catch-22 situation there. And I could not be happier with this guitar. The base price for this guitar is $4,000, which I think is a steal. A guitar of this quality with these appointments, the hand rub shellac finish and the hot hide glue and Adirondack spruce top, probably would cost several $1,000s more if it was from one of the larger known boutique builders out there. And I quite frankly think this guitar blows them all away. I've played many guitars by many I guess you would call them medium-sized boutique shops, and this guitar beats them all hands down. I'm just going to strum a couple chords so you could hear the fullness and openness of this guitar and give you a little bit more idea of what it sounds like. Listen to the sustain. Once again, the fit and finish of this guitar are spectacular. I'm wearing National thumb pick with metal finger picks. I pick hard. The guitar came to me from Todd. The setup was superb. It played like a beautiful Gibson Les Paul. I pick hard. There's absolutely no string buzz when I play without my finger picks or with just a flat pick. So if there was any fret buzzing there, it's because I pick really hard. But once again, Fraulini Guitar Company, Madison, Wisconsin. Beautiful, beautiful guitars. He has 6 or 7 different models that he makes. You can go to his website, www.fraulini.com, and check out what he has to offer. He's making great guitars. He does this full time, and he's a wonderful guy to deal with. And every Fraulini guitar I've ever seen has been a beautiful instrument, and it's well worth your time. Thanks for listening. You can reach out to me if you have any questions or comments. Just post them, and I'll respond, or you can get to me through my website at www.jpreali.com. Thanks for listening.